The other morning while I was walking the dog, I was thinking about the biggest photography lessons I've learned this year as I go about life and just try and be a better photographer. So I wrote them down and I thought I'd share them with you in this video today in the hopes that it helps or inspires anybody else out there on the internet. The first one very much stems from how I've spent most of my year so far photographically, which has been exploring new places, scouting, experimenting, and all round just not putting as much pressure on myself to constantly be creating my best work and just having fun with it. In previous years, I've been really quite regimented with my approach and being quite strict on myself and made sure that for a few weeks or a few months, I was out there taking it really seriously and trying to come away with the best results possible. And that's not a bad thing at all, but the problem was I wouldn't allow myself to go off and have fun and explore and experiment until I felt like I had come away and sort of been productive and got something that I was really proud of. And while I do think it's really key that you do make time for both of those avenues, serious work and fun experimenting, I think they need to coexist together with any creative hobby to keep you happy, keep you consistent, stop you from getting burnt out, and also just exploring new ways of working. But what I really learned this year was, especially because I've probably spent 90% of my time in that experimenting, having fun, non-serious stage, is that you don't need to have a time limit on how long you experiment or mess around or have fun or just play. And I will say that this year has potentially been my favorite year of photography to date. And I would also even go as far to say that all those random days out, that random experimenting and not really having any expectations or putting pressure on myself has actually resulted in more quote unquote keepers than if I was putting all that pressure on myself month in, month out. You will learn so much along the way regardless of what stage you're in. So basically embrace whatever stage you're in and what you're feeling like doing when it comes to your photography, rather than kind of having these rigid rules about when you should be having fun, when you should be being serious. Or the fact is, we have absolutely no idea which day we go out or which season it is that we're going to get our keeper shots or make the most progress forward in whatever it is we're working on. So just play it by ear a little bit, let yourself just have fun and experiment, and honestly, you'll be more better off for it. So speaking about moving forward and making progress, the next big lesson I've learned this year is that perfect photos, to ourselves at least, rarely exist. And this mind state, I think, can really help when it comes to making progress, moving forward with a particular project, actually finishing a portfolio, or perhaps just looking back at your old work and kind of rating your own images. Now, of course, I think there's tremendous value in photographing a certain subject or a certain place time and time again to try and get that perfect moment, that perfect image that you want to align with the vision that you've got in your head. In fact, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about photography, because if we went out and took a perfect photo every single time we went out, delayed gratification wouldn't exist in photography, and therefore it would all fall a bit flat. And I think for a perfect image to actually exist, it would almost have to be a combination of a few different days and a few different situations merged into one to create that photograph, which is kind of what AI does, right? It creates stuff that doesn't actually exist and is too perfect and too polished. I've shot this very same image 3 times this year, and personally for me, I'm so happy with this particular shot. There's something I would absolutely love though, and that would be to have a bit of fleeting fog up here behind the trees to diffuse this area. I'd go as far to say the chances of me standing here and taking a photo with just a slight little bit of fog up there in the trees is 1 in a million. And for absolutely everything to align, every pixel in the photograph to be perfect, it would almost not really be reality. And I know there are kind of the rare times we go out and we get super lucky and we're photographing a place or a subject and we think, this is literally perfect, I couldn't have wanted anything better. But I guarantee you could still probably pick out something from that image that annoys you slightly, or you might want to tweak slightly. So to bring that back to the beauty of photography and what makes the art of photography so fantastic is that when you go somewhere to photograph a subject or a place, the image, even though you're not present in the image, unless it's a self-portrait, but let's not get too nitpicky here, even though you're not present in the image itself, the image is still an extension of you because you're the person that was stood there and experienced that moment, that light, and those conditions at that time. You sometimes have to accept that not every single element is going to come together. And I think that's a much healthier way to look at photography, to look at your projects, to look at your portfolio, instead of just chasing these perfect images that don't really exist. Because if someone says to me, Greg, pick me your most perfect shot, your best shot in your entire portfolio, I can't pick one, because all of them I would look at and I'd say, well, I really love this image, it's beautiful, but I wish, or this is fantastic, but actually I shot it 5 years ago, and if I was to go to that place again, I'd probably do it differently. You know, I just don't think perfection really exists in photography, and it's what makes it so good, but also it can hold us back. So try to be aware of that. I fear that I've rambled on a little bit too much about that, so let me quickly get into the last lesson and the last point for this video that I really realized this year, and it's all about the best investments or changes you can make are anything that simplifies your process or makes your life easier. You know, we all really love the idea of buying something super flashy or super fun, or something that's kind of got this wow factor to it that we feel would be an absolute dream to have. And we often look at those items and say to ourselves, man, if I only had the money to buy that item, or I wish I earned enough to buy this, that, and that. But while those purchases are super fun, super rewarding, and you know, are great if you're a millionaire, as I've said on this channel many times, I think, in my personal opinion, the investments we want to make first above everything else, and a common goal that we should have running through our photography all the time, is to invest in areas where we currently have a pain point or a restriction or something that's getting in the way and causing friction between us and creating our work as easily and as comfortable as possible. So perhaps your tripod's so heavy and so bulky that you don't really like carrying it around on long photography walks. The thought of taking it kind of puts you off doing those long walks, so you leave it at home, but actually that leads to you missing out on photos that you really want to capture. Or perhaps your memory cards are so slow that you have to wait for hours for your files to transfer to your computer, and that eats into a lot of editing time. These are the small but big things that get in the way of us just having the best photography experience possible. A real example of this for me would be getting a smaller camera sling bag, because I struggled with a back injury and carrying around a big bag really wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. I still need to sometimes if I'm taking lunch with me or need a bit more for any particular day, but picking up a smaller bag that I can, you know, put minimal kit in and have a great lightweight time out with that bag was an absolute fantastic investment for me. We also often forget, because we are surrounded by so many flashy cameras, flashy lenses, big pieces of equipment that are super cool and get shoved down our throats by marketing teams, that actually some of the best purchases we make can be stuff that aren't necessarily photography related, but really aid the act of doing photography, like waterproof trousers, waterproof shoes. I once had somebody tell me that his favorite item of gear was actually his coat, because it had so many pockets that when he was out shooting, it was one of the most helpful tools he had, because he could chuck filters in, lens cloths in, even a lens, and stuff like that. I think is super valuable, and you could almost make a list of all the pain points you've got and all the little bits of friction that pop up when you're out shooting or when you're editing or when you're preparing your bag or anything like that, and tick them off. Try and invest in those areas, and it should be a common theme for as long as you do photography, to have as little annoyance as possible in your process. Right, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I apologize it's not an outdoor video today, but the weather is horrendous, so I'm chilling indoors. Thank you. I will see you in the next one.